Chosen, before you do anything else with this specific morning, I need you to pause and receive what is being released in this hour without rushing past it. For what is happening right now is not a random occurrence on a calendar. It is a deliberate, orchestrated doorway. You have been brought to this exact coordinate in time, inside the living heart of this Sunday, April 26th, 2026, not by chance, but by appointment. An appointment scheduled by the ancient hand of God before you were even a thought in time. The very fact that you are still here, that your spirit has tolerated the frequency of this message while others have fallen away, is the only proof you need that the standard measurements of logic and coincidence no longer apply to your life. There has been a sacred interruption in the fabric of your reality, and I know you have felt it accumulating. You know the texture of this interruption because it is what pulled you out of sleep, perhaps between the hours of 3 and 5 in the morning, a time when the veil is thinnest and the world is quietest. You didn't wake up because you were rested. You woke up because the heavens were speaking, and your spirit was summoned to listen, even while your body craved rest. For some of you, this interruption manifests as a persistent ringing in your ears, not a medical ailment, but the actual resonance of energetic codes loading into your consciousness, high-frequency data being downloaded for the specific work assigned to your hands in this next season. For others, it was felt as a strange and heavy pressure upon your shoulders, as if an invisible mantle of heavy authority was being lowered onto you, grounding you into the earth while your spirit prepared to soar. And I am here to tell you that you must stay with me in this stillness. For the version of you that has been quietly forming underneath the noise of your life, the one your closest people have not been able to name yet, but have started to sense with a quiet apprehension, is finally permitted to step through the gate that is opening today. You did not arrange the conditions of this hour, nor did you program the strangeness of the last few weeks. None of it. Not the way old conversations no longer fit your mouth. Not the way you grieve things you have not lost. Not the way your prayers have changed shape without your permission. None of it was malfunction. It was precise formation, the careful preparation for a threshold event. And the heaviness you woke up with on this dawn is not the heaviness of failure. It is the weighted density of arrival, the substantial force of something immense finally grounding into your reality. I know the algorithm brought you here, but do not mistake code for chaos. For what the Matrix calls a computer program is actually a spiritual sieve. A vibrational filter that has spent days, weeks, and months filtering out souls who cannot carry this word, filtering down until it found the precise vibrational signature of your heart, sitting here on this date of April 26th, 2026, ready to receive. The filter found you, and you followed the pull because that is what you have been doing all week. Following inner nudges you did not understand, opening doors you did not remember asking to open, and saying a reluctant yes to invitations that made no logical sense. All those tiny, seemingly insignificant choices kept leading you here, to this moment, to this specific message on this exact day at this hour. And I tell you, this is not coincidence. It is the hand of God arranging the conditions for the massive release He has been waiting to execute in your life. Stay with me. Take just one conscious, deliberate breath and notice that out of every possible action you could be engaged in on this morning, this is what was chosen for you. and you are here to see it through. The architecture of your wilderness was not designed to destroy you, though it often felt as if the walls of your reality were closing in to crush the very breath from your lungs. For what you perceived as a wasteland was actually a blueprint under construction. You must understand that every moment of agonizing silence, every season of financial drought where the numbers refused to align, and every instance where you felt your heart being carved out by the cold blade of betrayal was a surgical intervention performed by the universe itself. You looked at your empty hands and you saw a lack of provision, but the heavens looked at your empty hands and saw the successful removal of poisoned gifts and toxic attachments that would have eventually anchored you to a timeline you were never meant to inhabit. This wilderness was a divine construction site, and the debris being cleared away was the version of you that was far too soft, far too accommodating, and far too dependent for the sheer magnitude of power that is now arriving at your door. You were placed in a divine vacuum, a space of absolute stillness and perceived abandonment, not because you were forgotten by the Creator, but because your light is so potent and so rare that it would have been prematurely consumed by the matrix parasites that populate the lower frequencies of this world had you stayed in the open. You were being hardened in the dark, tempered by the intense pressure of your own private tears and the weight of a solitude you did not choose, so that when you finally emerged into the light of this Sunday, your spirit would be unbreakable, and your frequency would be entirely untouchable by those who seek only to harvest the energy of the chosen. There are those who have watched you from the shadows of your past, individuals who were once in your inner circle but were removed with a sudden, almost violent finality that left you questioning your own value and your own sanity. These are the watchers of the old cycle, the ones who secretly monitor your life from a distance, scrolling through the digital fragments of your existence, checking for signs of your collapse, and waiting with bated breath for the moment they can finally say they were right about your failure. They do not realize that their exit from your life was not a result of their own choice or your mistakes, but a divine eviction notice served by the Holy Spirit to protect the sanctity of your formation from their spiritual pollution. You were sealed off from them because they were the very conduits through which your destiny was being bled dry, and the universe saw their hidden agendas and the subtle ways they sought to dim your brilliance, even when you were blinded by your own misplaced loyalty. It moved with a surgical ruthlessness to sever those ties, leaving you in a vacuum where no one could hear you scream. So that the only voice you could eventually hear was the one that actually matters, the voice of the one who called you. This architecture of isolation was the only way to ensure that your vibrational signature was not contaminated by the parasitic expectations of those who only loved the version of you they could easily control and categorize. You have spent years feeling as if you were left behind, watching from the sidelines as others seemed to flourish in the mundane, while you were systematically stripped of your resources, your reputation, and your sense of direction. But I tell you with the authority of the heavens, you were not being punished. You were being preserved in a state of high-pressure holiness. The hardening you feel within your spirit today is the result of being forged in a vacuum, where the oxygen of external validation was cut off, forcing you to develop an internal source of life that does not depend on the world's flickering approval. This is the reserve concept of the chosen soul. You were kept in the hidden place, shielded by a veil of perceived failure, until your light became so concentrated and so refined that it could no longer be extinguished by the shadows of the matrix. The financial emptiness was not a sign of poverty, but a radical stripping of the false security that would have kept you enslaved to a system that is currently being dismantled by the very light you carry. You are being prepared to function in a new economy of spirit, one where the resource follows the calling with mathematical precision. And the reason you were not allowed to prosper in the old ways is that the old ways would have become a golden cage. The pain was the knife, you were the stone, and as you sit here on this April Sunday, you must realize that the sculpting is finished, and the vacuum is beginning to hiss as it opens to the new atmosphere of your true life. Now, listen as I peel back the veil to reveal the actual mechanics of the shift occurring within your very cells. For this is not a psychological adjustment or a mere change in perspective. It is a fundamental DNA reprogramming that has reached its critical mass on this Sunday morning. What you are currently feeling as a lightness in your chest or a subtle vibration at the base of your skull is the activation of dormant strands of spiritual intelligence that have been offline for generations, waiting for the precise cosmic alignment to ignite. You are not evolving through the slow, agonizing crawl of linear effort. You are making a quantum leap, a jump across dimensions that bypasses the logic of the three-dimensional matrix entirely. This is your entry into the fifth dimension, a state of being where the distance between thought and manifestation collapses, and where the heavy gears of struggle are replaced by the seamless movement of grace. You must understand the Kairos condition of this moment. It is not arriving because you worked harder, or because you finally became perfect in your own eyes, or because you earned it through suffering. It is arriving because your vibrational signature has finally reached a perfect harmonic match with the frequency of the divine resource. The universe is not a judge of merit, but a master of resonance. And today, the frequency you emit, the one forged in the silence of your wilderness, has unlocked the treasury of heaven. Imagine a city whose gates have been locked for centuries, with the chosen ones standing outside in the cold, waiting for a key that never seemed to arrive. I tell you that today, the gates are being torn from their hinges, not by the strength of your hands, but by the sheer force of the glory that is now being poured into your vessel. There is an erasure of karmic debt occurring in this very minute, a total clearing of the ledgers that have held your bloodline in a cycle of lack and invisibility for centuries, and you are the one chosen to witness the zeroing of the account. The heavy chains of ancestral patterns, the ones that made you feel as if you were constantly walking through deep water, have simply dissolved, and you are now stepping onto the dry ground of a new reality. Think of a river that has been blocked by a massive dam for years, leaving the riverbed below parched, cracked, and dying. Today, the dam has been detonated by a divine decree, and there is a river entering a dry riverbed, a rushing, unstoppable torrent of favor and abundance that is filling every crack of your past disappointments. You can hear the roar of the water coming, and though the world might still see the dry sand, your spirit knows that the flood is already here, and everything that was once thirsty is about to be overwhelmed by the deep. The mechanics of this shift are effortless because they are being driven by the magnetic pull of your new identity, drawing to you the people, the opportunities, and the substance that are inherently yours by divine right. You no longer need to hunt for your destiny, for in the fifth dimension, your destiny is hunting for you, tracked by the unique scent of your purified frequency. This is the radical nature of the shift. You have moved from the seeker to the found, from the one who asks to the one who is answered. The heavy labor of the old cycle is over, and you are entering the rest that was promised to those who could survive the fire. This is not a metaphor. It is the biological and spiritual reality of the chosen soul crossing the threshold. You are being recalibrated to handle a level of power that would have disintegrated the person you were only 3 months ago. The subtle shifts in your perception, the way you now see through the illusions of the matrix with a terrifying clarity, and the way your intuition has become a sharp, surgical instrument, are all evidence of this reprogramming. You are now operating on a higher frequency, and as you do, the lower frequency obstacles of your old life are simply becoming invisible to you. The shift is complete. The mechanism is engaged. The river is flowing. And you are finally, irrevocably, entering the dimension of your true belonging. There is a weight to the secret that you must now learn to carry. For the force that has been deposited into your spirit this morning is still in its infancy, and its greatest enemy is the premature air of public explanation. You must understand the law of silence with a terrifying sobriety. Do not speak of this new resource. Do not mention the shift to the uninitiated, and do not attempt to translate the glory of this Sunday, April 26th, 2026, into the common tongue of those who still inhabit the old cycle. There is a sacred circle of protection that must be drawn around your heart right now, a boundary of holy quiet that keeps the power from leaking out through the holes of your need to be understood. When you try to explain a divine activation to a person who is still vibrating at the frequency of the matrix, you are essentially trying to describe color to the blind, and the friction of their disbelief will act as a parasitic drain on your new momentum. You have spent your whole life trying to get people to see the light inside you, trying to justify your existence to those who were never equipped to perceive your depth. But those days of pleading are over. If you open your mouth to share the blueprints of your becoming before the foundation is dry, you invite the winds of doubt to blow through the structure, and you give the enemy a map to the very treasure God is trying to hide within you until it is fully manifest. This is your period of internal incubation, a time to be silent and pregnant with the impossible, knowing that the most powerful things in the universe grow in the dark and the quiet, without needing a witness to validate their progress. Be aware that there is a new threat rising in the wake of your activation. For the environment you left behind, the one populated by energy vampires and familiar spirits, is already sensing a profound disturbance in the spiritual field. Those who were accustomed to feeding off your empathy, those who found comfort in your stagnation, and those who used your light to illuminate their own shadows, are currently feeling the loss of their primary food source. They may not have a name for what has changed, but they can feel the shift in your gravity, and they will begin to probe your new field with a sudden intensity, seeking to trigger the old version of you into a familiar reaction. They will come with subtle criticisms dressed as concern. They will reach out with sudden emergencies that used to demand your immediate intervention, and they will attempt to bait you into the old arguments that once drained your vital force. This is a strategic probe, designed to see if the gates have truly been torn from their hinges, or if they can still find a way to drag you back into the enclosure of the old reality. You must realize that their behavior is not a reflection of their love for you, but a reflection of their terror at losing the version of you they could manage. They are matrix agents of the old cycle, sent to test the seal of your new protection. If you engage them with words, if you try to explain why you are different, or if you defend your right to change, you have already lost the battle, because you have stepped back down to their level of operation. The verdict for the chosen one on this Sunday is absolute. Your results will be your only answer, and you no longer need words to defend yourself against the shadows of the past. You are entering a season where your silence is your strength, and your manifestation is your mouth. For the fruits that are about to grow from the branches of your life will speak with a volume that no human argument could ever match. Why would a lion explain his roar to the grass? And why would the sun justify its rising to the night? You must adopt a posture of divine indifference toward the opinions of those who were never part of the blueprint, realizing that the new power you carry is self-vindicating. As the resources begin to land, as the health returns to your body, as the doors of opportunity swing open without a touch, and as the peace that passes all understanding becomes your permanent atmosphere, the world will have no choice but to acknowledge the shift. You do not need to prove that you are chosen. You only need to be chosen. And the reality of that state will eventually become undeniable to everyone who ever doubted you. Your silence is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of the immense density of the truth you are now holding. It is the silence of a king who knows that his decree is already being carried out by invisible legions. Let them wonder, let them whisper, and let them speculate in the void. For while they are talking about who you used to be, you will be busy inhabiting the massive reality of who you have become. Your results are coming, and they will be the only testimony required to silence every energy vampire and every doubt that ever tried to claim residence in your mind. The sun is beginning to trace its descent across the sky of this Sunday, April 26th, 2026. But the light that has been ignited within the core of your being during this hour does not depend on the rotation of the earth or the cycles of the moon. We have reached the final layer of this transmission, the place where the spiritual architecture we have discussed becomes a legal reality in the courts of heaven and a physical reality in the streets of your life. This is the moment of the seal, the point where the transformation is no longer a possibility you are contemplating, but a permanent state you are inhabiting. You can feel the atmosphere around you thickening even now, a palpable density of peace that is acting as a divine weight, pinning the new version of you to the timeline of your highest destiny. Everything we have spoken of, the wilderness, the mechanics of the shift, the law of silence, it all culminates in this final decree of acceptance. You are stepping out of the flickering shadows of the trying phase and into the steady radiance of the becoming phase. And there is no power in the matrix that can reverse the acceleration that has been initiated in your spirit on this specific Sunday. I speak now directly to the part of you that has felt like a stranger on this planet since the day you were born. The part of you that has carried a quiet, aching loneliness, even in rooms full of people who claimed to love you. That feeling of being an outsider, of being a wanderer without a home, of being a soul without a patron, was the signature of the orphan spirit that the old cycle used to keep you in a state of perpetual hunger. But hear me clearly as the frequency of this message settles into your bones. Your orphanhood is over. You are no longer a spiritual vagabond begging for scraps of validation or searching for a seat at tables that were never designed to hold your weight. You have been formally adopted into the highest order of divine patronage. And from this Sunday, April 26th, 2026 forward, you are under the absolute, unbreachable protection of the Most High. This is not a poetic sentiment. It is a jurisdictional shift. The heavens have moved to cover you, and you are now a protected asset of the divine, a soul whose needs are met before they are even voiced, and whose path is cleared by legions that move at the speed of thought. The mark of the chosen is now visible upon your brow in the unseen realm, and every energy vampire, every parasitic entity, and every architect of delay can see that you are now off limits. Because you are under protection, the frantic need to survive has been replaced by the quiet power to prevail. You do not need to scramble. You do not need to fight for your portion, and you do not need to worry about the timing of your manifestation. For the one who provides for the lilies has now taken full responsibility for your brilliance. Your only task is to remain in the resonance of this acceptance, to walk with the posture of one who knows they are deeply and irrevocably cared for. The weight that left your shoulders earlier in this hour is never coming back, for you have traded the heavy burden of self-reliance for the light yoke of divine partnership. You are standing in the after, and the before is already becoming a blurred memory, a distant shore that you will never visit again. This Sunday is the demarcation line of your life, the point where the struggle ended and the sovereignty began. Now, I ask you to do something that seems small, that carries the weight of a mountain in the spiritual realm. You must anchor this frequency into the physical matter of the earth. The spirit needs a witness in the flesh to finalize the contract. I want you to go to the comments below and write a statement of your arrival, not for the eyes of men, but as a signature on the decree of your own liberation. Write, "I am under protection," or "My orphanhood ends today," or simply the date of this threshold, April 26th, 2026. By typing those words, you are using your physical senses to lock this vibrational shift into the material world, turning a spiritual revelation into a historical fact. Let your comment be the anchor that holds your ship in this new harbor, while the old storms blow themselves out in the distance. Do not overthink the words. Let your spirit dictate the sentence that seals the work. As you go to sleep tonight, the world will look the same to the casual observer, but you will know that the ground beneath your feet has fundamentally changed its composition. You have crossed the river, you have passed the watchers, and you have entered the land of your belonging. The silence that follows this message is not an empty silence. It is the heavy, golden silence of a king who has just finished writing a law that will change the world. You are that law. You are that light. You are the evidence that the divine still speaks, still chooses, and still delivers. The search is finished. The waiting is over. The door is closed behind you, and the path ahead is glowing with the light of your own internal fire. You no longer search for the path. You are the path.